Hi everyone, it's Margaret Manning here. Welcome to 60 and Me. Hope you're having a wonderful day today. Welcome to a new one. Every day to me is so precious, and I wake up just thinking, this is another opportunity for trying something new and, of course, talking to you guys. And it really means a lot to me to know that you're there. We have a big community now, and I've just been so amazed recently by how we're growing. Very quickly, people are telling their friends, and I encourage you to do that. There are so many women over 50 who are just, without this connection. I recently went to a TEDx event in Zurich, and every time I spoke to someone, it was just like, oh my gosh, that's such an interesting thing to do, because there was like nothing that anyone knew about that was for women over 60. 50, 60. We kind of think the changes start to happen, before your 60s, obviously. But anyway, thanks for being here and for giving me all the support that you do. It really means a lot to me. So thank you. Now, tea. This morning, I'm drinking something. I got a gift of some tea. It was a box of tea by Twinings. It's digital detox. Oh, it's not digital, detox drainage. I'm thinking digital everything. Detox drainage, and it's a really nice tea. It's got some interesting ingredients in it. It's got cherry stalks. I think that's the biggest ingredient. And then it's got green coffee. Where's my glasses here? I'll read the rest of this stuff. It's really always fascinating to me what goes into these teas. But cherry stalks and green coffee. And then there's chicory root, and then some rosemary leaves, orange leaves, and orange flavors. And it's blended and packed in Poland. So anyway, that's my tea for today. It's a Twinings product, and I really love the fact that a lot of these classic tea lines are starting to do interesting blends and interesting things. I think Twinings has just come out with a salted caramel tea, which I haven't seen yet in the shops, but of course, you all know my love of salted caramel, so I'll probably be the first in line when it's available here. But anyway, I have an article to talk to you about today that's really interesting. Now, we have a number of very cool bloggers who write for you, and we have a couple of men. Malcolm Dewey is one. He's an artist, but he writes articles that are kind of outside the scope of art. I mean, he does do art classes, and he offers art training, and he's actually a very good artist. But this article is about change and about how it can be used as a positive growth energizer. And his story is kind of a personal one, and I'd encourage you to read it, but I'll just summarize and maybe pull it into our own experience. And of course, he says that, there's three different kinds of fears, fears of success, fear of failure, and then fear of change. And of course, we all know that change is actually probably the only constant in our universe, that when you think about the number of places you've lived or the jobs you've had or, the changes in your life, and they really, in most respects, are motivators and energizers to move on to the next thing. But Malcolm talks very openly and honestly about his own experience and about how we go from this time in our lives when we're confident, we're the confident youth, to how we evolve. And of course, we were blessed, I think, in our generation with an economy that made it perhaps easier to find work, or perhaps we just slotted ourselves into job categories where there were jobs. We weren't so questioning of what our purpose was or what our meaning in life was, as a lot of younger people are today. But we found jobs quite easily. Most of us went from high school to a job, whether it was a secretarial position as a woman or, in some kind of other role as a guy. We just blended in, and we had confidence. We knew that we would make it. We knew that there would be opportunity and that we would take advantage of it and go for it. And then Malcolm describes the next stage as time being a thief. Now, time kind of takes you away from reality, and it steals away your years by filling them in with requirements, maturity, opportunities that we feel are part of social norms, that we should get married, that we should have a job that is, responsible, that we have our children and put them through college. We support everybody. And these are not, it's not that our confidence goes away. It just becomes muted by social stereotypes and responsibilities. And we gain materially, or at least we think we might. We purchase a house, we purchase a car, we invest in things, stuff for the kids, stuff to make us happy. And we preserve our lifestyle, based on these possessions. And he says then that the ego has landed. And this is, of course, where we get attached to those things. Somehow we define ourselves in relationship to those things that we've purchased. And suddenly our lives are not quite maybe what we started out with, that we've changed along the way. Maybe we've jumped forward with positive, change, but we slowly realize that stuff is not the important thing. And I think this is one of the really interesting things about older demographic. I was listening to a program yesterday about how brands don't really sell properly to our demographic of 50, 60 plus women, that they think that we want to buy luxury goods for ourselves. This is, and maybe some do, but we basically want to treat ourselves to our ego and let that take place. But maybe we don't. Maybe we are more interested in experiences, maybe gifts for our grandchildren, education, travel, of course, is a huge thing. And really, as I said, more experiences rather than stuff. So when Malcolm talks about this, and he says, this is the time in life where we start thinking, okay, maybe it's time for a change. Time to really use this change to jumpstart our next phase of our life. This next 20, 30, whatever years we have in our world. So he says, then you have the last paycheck. You've given up your job. You've started something new. And in his case, of course, it was art. He decided to go back into art. And at that point, there's no turning back. There's no jobs that really are going to be easily accessible for you after 60. You really, once you accept that you've retired, unless you've got consultancy skills or some kind of, some kind of skill that you can market from home, working from home, start your own business, you really are on your own financially. And of course, the fear sets in where you think, well, have I got enough money to survive? Can I live in the house I've either bought or I'm renting? Is that going to work for me? Is that my life? Is that the change, that I want? And as he says, change is the only constant. And for most of us now in our 60s, we have to accept that we have to choose the path of least resistance, where we're not fighting for things that, that we're not going to have, that we have to accept and embrace and kind of live within the boundaries of what we have. And he actually asks a really interesting question. And I thought this was a good sentence, which is, do you let fear be your guide or do you let it be your master? Is fear your guide or your master? And for a lot of people, no judgment, but it's our master, that we actually don't feel like we have control of it. Whereas there's another way of looking at it, which is change can be your guide. It can be the thing that opens a door to some new way of life, some new way of living, way of earning money. And it can be the thing that gives you joy in your life. Now, for Malcolm, he became an artist. He decided that was his path and that his creative expression was the most important thing to him. And maybe you found something in your life that is equally exciting and, just fills your heart with joy. So I hope that's been useful. I mean, when I read this article, I really felt like it was speaking to me that, change honestly has been my guide throughout life. I've never really, I don't think I've ever been in one place for longer than a few years. I've moved a lot like you probably. And every change opportunity has really been positive. At the time, maybe some of them, a couple of them I can look at and say didn't feel so good. But then as you do, you push through. So I wonder what you think about that comment about change and the fear of change. Do you fear change? Is it your guide or is it your master? Are you ready to embrace change in your life so that you can, open a new door and move into a new way of living? I really would love to know what you think. I mean, I hope that you can leave some comments below as to how you're dealing with change in your life. Is it your master or your guide? And let's have a conversation. So again, thanks for being here. Thank you so much for just taking the time to comment and leave your feedback and support one another. I love the virtual hugs that you give each other. It's really wonderful. And I do hope that you have a great day. Do something positive for yourself. Maybe it is going to involve some change in your life, but let's talk about it. Okay, everyone. Well, do have a wonderful day, whatever you've got planned, whatever you're going to do. And I'll see you all back here again very soon. Bye-bye for now.